All right. I think I did this correctly. If there's anybody here, can you see me or can you hear me? All right. Testing. Okay, it says we've got 4 people. I've never seen this layout before on my screen, so everything that I look at is new to me. So far, I see Victoria, Justin. Hey, Justin. It's good to see you, buddy. Hey, Joe. Hey, all the way from the United Kingdom. That is awesome. Hey, oh, Randy. Yep. Go Razorbacks. Hey, Henry. Hey, I just want to let you guys know. I mean, for the people that are already here, I've already started freezing ice for my ice chest. Tomorrow, I will be packing up all day, and I will be heading down on Thursday to Lake Ouachita, and it's just north of Hot Springs. I mean, if anybody has the ability to pull it up on Google Map, just so that you can look at it, I have Googled the map, looked around. There's a friend of mine down there who has a houseboat and a cabin cruiser on the Brady Mountain, which is on the south side of the lake. There's a dock area there where they keep a cabin cruiser and a houseboat winterized all winter there. And Friday, it's supposed to be 60 and sunny. So we're hoping to hit the ground running on Friday morning there. But me looking over the map, I'm super excited about the area. I mean, you guys have all heard the stories about, fishermen early in the morning before the sun comes up, being back in coves and having rocks thrown at them while they're fishing. So when you look at the map of this lake, there is a lot of shoreline. There's a lot of islands and shoreline. And so to be able to use a houseboat and have a thermal camera scouring the shorelines, we should have the potential to cover a lot of area, especially if we can get into a cove that's pretty tight with a lot of woods and just anchor the boat and sit and allow something to transpire and use the thermal to look into the wood line. I had Shane send me the thermal, the ATN thermal that has zoom capability and recording capabilities. I have never used that thermal, but I thought it was important to have that camera on this trip because of how much time we're going to be spending on the boat. But I'm also going to have access to the thermal drone. The gentleman that I'm going to be with, his name is Bob, and he uses the Onyx maps, and he's the one who's invited me there. And Can Squatch, I'm going to be using the thermal drone. I'm very nervous about launching the drone, that expensive drone, from a boat and then having it over water. So if it's at all possible, if something happens where I think I need to get that drone up, I would really like to be able to disembark and launch it from the ground. But I won't know until I get there to see what's going on. Hey, Nancy from the Panhandle of Virginia. Wow. So what I'm going to do is, if you guys come up with any ideas, that you think would be interesting to try, I am going to give you credit and I'm going to try it. I got me a notepad here and a pen, and I'm going to jot down things. You know, if somebody comes up with anything, I will tell you what I'm going to do. That's what I normally do, especially in a new area that I'm unfamiliar with. It has potential. And I see a lot of dead end roads. If you look at the map, you're going to see coming down that mountain into the lake area on the south side, there's a road that cuts off to the west that goes to a firing range. And you can see that it goes past that firing range and dead ends. I see that as a great spot to go sit one night, the way I like to sit with my vehicle, you know, with the, windows taped up with a parabolic mic on it. So, yeah, Justin. Yeah, definitely do not want. As a matter of fact, I do not. Yeah, for that drone to come back to a boat that is no longer sitting in the same spot, that would be a nightmare. So yeah, Justin. I was thinking I would have to turn off there's sensors on the drone that make it difficult to land in precarious situations. But it's also the same sensors that allow it to not hit a tree. So if I shut those off just so that I could land it on the boat without I can't have any landing issues. When it gets to the boat, if I can't get it to land on the boat, you could be in real trouble, because your only option after that is water. And I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I was even trying to figure out ways that I could make pool noodles into a little landing that I could attach to the bottom and have a pool noodle, support like a little pontoon. But I couldn't get that to work. So really the worst case scenario is to just not launch it from the boat, just because there's too many factors that could turn out bad. But I'm telling you, if I see something from the boat that's happening on land in the wood line somewhere, I'm going to find a way to get on land to send that drone up. Because I think it's that important. But anyways, back to the story about where the firing range is, the gun range on the south side of that lake. I would like to go down one night and just park, 2 a.m., 1 a.m. with the windows taped up with black blankets and parabolic on the top. It is such a valuable technique that I've had some success with. The bluff charge that I had up in Washington was using that technique. Certainly the park where I had my encounter with the 2 Bigfoots I was in the vehicle with blankets up. So I am completely sold on being in a vehicle with the windows taped up that they can't see into. To me, it seems like there's something about them coming up and looking at a vehicle and they can't see in it that throws them. It throws them for a loop, I think. So that's whether or not that is really why it's successful, I don't know. But I do not want to give that up. So I'm definitely going to do that in a couple different locations. Let's see, Randy, the old big fur camp on the south shoreline. Oh yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Randy. So given I'm going to do that because I've got to be able, in a new area, I want to be able to hear what's going on in the darkness, and nothing better than a parked vehicle being an attractant for something to come around and check it out, and you being prepared for it. That'll tell me more than just about anything else. Oh, Leah, the Japanese, I don't know if I'm going to take that much equipment down there, Leah, the Japanese language bait tent, because being my first trip there, and I'm going to be with another person that's will be using his boat. So there's going to be a lot of time spent on this boat scouring shorelines, and then just the few things of activity that I would do away from that is if I could get away in the middle of the night and go do some parking in different dead end areas to ascertain what's going on. I think that's going to work out best for my first trip there. And I've got to tell you, we've got a couple of days of rain that it's going to probably start tomorrow and rain all the way through Thursday. So that's to our benefit because I'm going to be there Friday. So after a couple of days of heavy rain, going to be there on Friday. And so that means everything will probably be battened down to weather the storm. And then the next clear day, we're there all night checking things out. Maybe that will benefit us as far as having some activity. No BFFG Bigfoot research. I am not taking the e-bike. As I said before, this is just the preliminary. I mean, I'm going to take a tent. I might end up sleeping in my vehicle. I might end up sleeping on one of the boats. He's got 2 boats, and they both are heated, and you can sleep in them. I don't know if I want to. I don't want to burden somebody so much like that, but I will. I might set my tent up on the dock. It's a covered dock. I'm going to need a place to have my laptops and check equipment. I am going to, Kraken. With a couple of days of heavy rain, we are going to have to make sure that the lake levels. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. I'm not sure how the dam would release water if it needs to. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with any of that lake. I can't wait to get acclimated to what's going on there. Let's see. Daryl, the forest guy. I would try fishing in a spot for a while. Yeah. I'm sure Bob has some fishing poles, and we've talked about it already, about getting back into those tight coves in the cabin cruiser and shutting it all down in the dark and sitting on the boat and use a parabolic to listen to what's going on. I mean, I hope to goodness that technique that seems to be across the board effective for fishermen to be just back in a cove fishing before daylight and have an approach by a curious Bigfoot. But the thing is, there's a million people out there doing it. And so what ratio of people fishing turns into an encounter? It's still pretty rare. Just because we hear a fisherman having that happen or rocks being thrown doesn't mean that it's very common. So all we can do is try to take advantage of that and get back in those coves where things like that do happen and hope it happens to us. So I've got that technique where I'm going to park in the vehicle. That's a true and tried, and I'll be able to bring back audio information from things like that. We're going to be sitting in these coves, and we're going to be traveling with the boat using the ATN thermal with a 40 times zoom, and really be able to penetrate the woods along these deep edges of the northern side of the lake. And from what I gather, there's hundreds of miles of shoreline. So yeah, bacon. We may have to bring a little grill on the boat, and when we're sitting quiet, up in those coves, at 3 a.m. throw some meat on that thing. Let's see what we can do. That might be worth a try if me and Bob can keep from eating it all. Okay, and so I also found out something new. If you look at the Google map of Ouachita Lake, I was reading just the other night that Winona Lake, which is just a little northeast of there, I read a report where somebody was there and had some probable suspected Bigfoot activity, and it's the same mountain range. So 2 different lakes in a very close proximity to each other on the same mountain range. I believe that there's going to be something going on around this lake. If the equipment can do its job and you pay enough attention, I think something will happen. I mean, of course, nobody knows, but even at the very least, I hope to hear something. It would be nice if we get some rocks thrown and then have the potential to have one of the thermal cameras do its job. And that's my only goal, is to constantly try to put myself in places where if and when something happens, trying to be prepared when it does happen. So, but also on the north side of the lake, there's a little town called Jesseville. I have relatives that live in Jesseville, and they have 300 acres. I just found this out. It's my dad's sister and her husband. I think I've only talked to her once in my life. They're in their 70s, in their upper 70s, uh, probably almost 80, on a 300-acre horse farm. And my cousin is in her 50s and lives in Bentonville, Arkansas. So my belief is they're sitting on 300 acres outside of Jesseville that is basically not being used like it has in the past as a horse farm, because now my aunt and uncle are almost 80 years old. So how long has this 300 acres been inactive and not used as an active horse ranch? So I've reached out to her, see if I can't schedule a visit with her while I'm there. I'd love to find out just what the lay of their land looks like, and could possibly have another area, 300 acres there that that a family of mine owns. How great would that be? Okay, Joe asked, have you tried your method where you sit in your car with windows covered but place sand? Or yeah, no, I have not. I have not tried that. I've thought about it, but man, the degree of difficulty and the depth, how deep you'd have to have the sand, man, I don't know. Hell, I have a hard enough time getting 25 pounds of hydrocal with me. I can't imagine how much sand I'd have to take to make something like that viable. But thank you, Joe. That's a good suggestion. Maybe sometime if you had time in the future, you could rake back the grass and leaves and try to create an area that would hold a footprint. Henry, I picked up a light military helmet. Yeah. Hey, Henry, I have thought about wearing a bicycle helmet at times. When the rock throwing was active, I've thought to myself, man, I need eye protection and maybe a bicycle helmet. Oh yeah, it definitely crossed my mind. Yeah. Can Squatch, the 300. Yeah. I sure hope, I do get to have a sit down chat with my relatives on that property. Unidentified Arkansas phenomena. Good luck. A lot of traffic around the Lake Ouachita. Lake Winona is a better option, in my opinion, with all that dirt roads. You're probably right, buddy. Well, and I see, since you've got Arkansas in your name, I would take your word for it. And I won't know till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, when most people activity is done. That's the time when we should find out, if there's things going on. But from what I understand, the Brady Mountain, and there's another mountain there on the south side, is a pretty steep mountainous area that cuts off the lake from. So the terrain sounds like it's right up my alley, as far as getting in there on a dead end road with the high mountain ridges between you, and it goes down to the lake. Very excited. You got to have some discipline to be able to sit for an hour or more and just listen. But I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. And I can sit in the vehicle and be reading a book, take my best Bigfoot book, none of the missing 411 stories, because I don't want to be hearing that shit while I'm in the vehicle by myself in a dark, deep area that I'm unused to. So yeah, Bruce, I'm not going to be doing that Aztec death whistle. I'm not going to be doing dog whistles. It's about this first trip is just monitoring and hoping for the best. If anything happens on any one of these fronts the techniques that I'm using, I will definitely be going back. And I have used a boat one time down in Texas on Paris Lake, where we did use the thermal on a boat one night. And it was a very small boat. To have access to a houseboat, just the comfort level of being able to spend all night on a houseboat or a cabin cruiser. And so I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully this relationship with Bob it'll turn into something better, where I can go down there quite often. And man, I mean, if we get something, I'll be through the moon, man. Michael Fetterman, we get most of our activity in winter, especially during light rain, and almost always between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Can't argue with that. Uh, I mean, the rain part is just miserable for us people. So that's fun. And most equipment, the rain part makes most equipment uh, unusable. I mean, I can't get my drone out in any kind of rain or even high wind. It's just too risky. And thermals and stuff like that. Very rarely do you have something that's waterproof. So yeah, unfortunately, being the tenderfoots that we are, we're real limited. But I appreciate that, Michael. Yeah, yeah, 1 to 4 a.m. You're gonna have to get your day and nights rearranged when you get set up for a good research trip. You're gonna have to sleep till noon, or 1 or 2 if you want to stay up till 4 a.m. every night, and you want to. So in order to do that, you're gonna have to get some sleep during the day. So if there's people that like to get up at 6 or 7 a.m. and chit chat and drink coffee, that kills me, because that's when I need to be getting some sleep. The gruesome twosome. I'd love for you to come to the Texas-Louisiana state line with me. Dude, hit me up with a message. Hit me up with a message in the back channel somehow. And I mean, we'll, schedule's always willing. If I can afford to go somewhere, I'll go, especially in an active area. I still enjoy this so much. And this is really all I'd hoped for, was just people to say, hey, Randy, come to my area. Let's verify what's going on here, or do the best I can. I'm not a person that can verify anything. I just go in and try to pay attention, but I enjoy it. And I hope you guys, you can see that I enjoy it. And what? Gruesome twosome, I'll pay for your expenses. I don't know if that's necessary. I do it because I love to do it. And if I can get where I need to go, I'll do it. So, I wouldn't go that route, but I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. I've always dreamed that people would say, man, Randy, I've got all this stuff going on here, or I suspect all of this stuff is going on. And, and you've got some pretty good equipment. If you'd come down here and spend a week, for someone to ask me to give them a seal of approval that there's something going on there, that would mean the most to me, as far as whether people think that what I'm doing is legit. And I'm not going to lie to them. I'm never going to go on somebody's property and lie to them and tell them that there's something going on if it's not going on. But, that's just the way it is. Michael Fetterman, I use a red spotlight when I hear something close. Only one sighting, and it was during the day, walking the dogs on a trail. Scared them so bad. Oh, yeah. 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 Dogs and horses, man, they know it before we do, don't they? Randy. What a great name. There's a guy on here named Randy. Randy, I've heard some crazy stories about the south side of the Blue Mountain Lake and between Y City and Acorn on 71. Heard a good dogman story in the National Forest. Well, I don't even know where Blue Mountain Lake and Y City and Acorn is. Acorn. I have heard that name. Is Acorn in Arkansas? I'm going to have to check that out. The gruesome twosome, Angelina National Forest is wild. That's where Matt, Bear, and Coonbo had a lot of experiences. Well, then it sounds like a good area. If those guys verify it and vouch for it. Gruesome twosome in Texas. In Texas. My God, I'd like to get down to the Big Thicket. I've been down on the Sabine and outside in Natchez, river bottoms and things like that. I was down there doing some research, but man, I'd love to have gone a little bit further south from there and got down into the Big Thicket. I hear so many stories from there. Leah, you sound like you are ready for this new squatching boat technique. I really hope you have some juicy news for us. I'm going to make a nice video about it. I think the drone with this new lake, with all the islands and everything, I think it's going to make a really great video. I really, truly hope something happens. And I'd love to be able to do a shout out to somebody. If there's anything that I can try that anybody here recommends, and I'm going to be writing stuff down, and I'm going to shout it out on the video that I make about this trip. So Acorn is just north of Mena. Randy, wow. Okay, I like that. I was just in Mena. On my last trip, I went into Mina twice to get supplies. So yeah, that is cool. Randy, what is your theory on why they are so effective at avoiding cameras? Joe, you got me there. It's one of those things where, you know, I'm trying different techniques like burying a camera inside a log for the first time. So I don't know. But I could spend so much time trying to figure it out instead of moving on to what I think does work. But yeah, I mean, I'd love. For me, it's a numbers game, and I think if you find an area that they use regularly, say like I just mentioned on the last video where there's too many instances where they come in behind a vehicle. There's too much evidence of them using a vehicle as a buffer, and I witnessed it myself at the Chickasaw Park where they put the vehicle between them and the tent. So if that's a pattern that we can count on, then you can just play the numbers game. And the numbers game is you set a game cam in the wheel well on the back side of a vehicle away from your campsite, and that's what you do every time. It doesn't matter how long it takes for a Bigfoot to use that technique, but if you've read enough reports and it's happened enough times with enough handprints on the backside of a vehicle, because that's what they're using to block themselves from the camping area, well, then we should take advantage of that. So that's what I'm going to try to do with one of those log cameras. I'm always going to have it behind the vehicle, in that area, hoping to bank on that being a pattern that shows itself over and over again over time. Yeah, Walmart and Mina. Yeah, Leah. Yeah, I know that Walmart well. Now I know where everything's at. The propane tanks, the sporting goods, all that stuff. Yeah, Mark, $1 million question. If I had an answer for the $1 million question, we'd all be rich. So, but it's just a numbers game. All I know is I uncover each time just how intelligent they are. So that's all we can work with. Michael Fetterman, dogs can see electrical impulses through your skin. Many of them. Yeah, Mike. I mean, hell, they use dogs that could smell cancer in people. They use dogs that help diabetics when their blood sugar gets low. The dogs are amazing in what they can pick up, whether it's electrical frequencies or just the dynamics of the human body. That's a great point, Mike. Bikes and Bullets. That is it. I like that name. I am thankful for men like the sensible Bigfoot putting in this work. Man, I appreciate that. I enjoy talking here. I have not done this before, but I enjoy it. I like the subject. I still enjoy the subject ever since my encounter, and certainly everything that's happened since then. And I feel like I get tantalizingly close at times. But I appreciate it. It means a lot. Your acceptance of what I'm doing. It means a lot, and thank you. Leah, when did you last use the pheromone chip? The last time I used the pheromone chip, remember the video I did about Bullet Maker's place down in Oklahoma? That was a long time ago, but I had a pheromone chip that I got from a Texas group at that point, and we used that a few nights there. And I've got to tell you, nothing spectacular happened when using that pheromone chip, and it was raunchy. I mean, you would hold that thing up and it reeked. So I just don't know if I just didn't give it enough of a chance or used it enough. But at that 2 or 3 day stretch where we hung it up and had game cameras up, and maybe it's because we didn't understand the placement of game cameras being such a deterrent. Maybe the pheromone chip would work better in a different situation. But the combination of the chip and the cameras out in the open was a no-go at that time. So, we should always be altering how we do things. But yeah, a pheromone chip might work good in the future if I use one of my log cameras now sitting on the ground somewhere else so that you can't see the camera. Can Squatch. Just act normal as possible. Have you met me, Can Squatch? Act normal as possible. That is hard to do. They're like, Randy, don't look over there in the woods. There's something. And I'm all excited looking over there. So, hey, what is normal for us? Oh, Queen Wilhelmina is a great overlook. We'll have to check that out. Michael Fetterman, many animals can probably do that, including Sasquatch. Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Buick 350 V8 power. Oh my God. Oh, the names here are fantastic. The trail cam inside the log, that doesn't scare them off, possibly because they're in front of it. Good point. Good point. I do not know. I just can't know. One of these days, if I do something and it works, and we can say, okay, maybe this is why it worked, but here's the technique, everybody use it. And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to come up with something and have it work. But remember, at the Chickasaw Park, I did get 2 good pictures that I believe was that juvenile Bigfoot that came up to the table that I had the camera, and I didn't even have the camera hidden. It was just on the table with a bunch of other supplies all stacked around it so that there was nothing out of place but camping stuff sitting on the table. And it came up, you got the headshot and the shoulder and the armpit. But there's 2 points there. It was a young one. It was probably that juvenile, that 5-foot tall juvenile 4 months earlier that I saw in the campsite. So it could be that he was inexperienced. So that has to be a possibility. The young ones aren't as experienced or as disciplined as they need to be or should be, or they're given too much freedom before they learn those skills. Needless to say, I believe I captured that night 2 pictures of the juvenile using a game camera that was hidden in a way. So until my view of that changes, I'm going to keep trying to hide a game camera in plain sight in a way that maybe a young one can be tricked. Bikes and bullets. I have had a couple experiences myself. I'm a Marine veteran and former law enforcement. When you know, you know. No doubt, buddy. Bikes and bullets. Now I know why bullets is in your name. Mike, if you are researching with other people and you hear or see something, be sure not to point in their direction. Oh yeah, for sure, Mike. Yeah, I mean, we definitely know those techniques where just keep talking amongst yourself. Don't bring any attention to it. Don't look in that direction. But that means you have to have everything pre-set up. You need to have your thermal camera set up, and so that all you got to do is just film behind you or whatever without making it too obvious. There's so many elusive techniques that we have to employ, when things are happening, so that you don't, you can't stop the activity. And the only way it really stops is if you shine a light that way, or if you direct your attention that way. Which is so ironic. The irony of this whole thing is they don't want you to look at them, but they keep getting close enough and throwing rocks and making noises like they want you to look at them. I don't get the irony. That's why I feel like they're trying to communicate in the only way they know how, but they're having trouble getting through this timidness, the timidness that they have of being seen, but they're compelled to try. I think they're trying. But that's just my thoughts. So, maybe one of these days it'll play out. Who knows? All right, Leah, thank you so much for hanging out here. I appreciate your support. You've been here from the beginning, so I appreciate you. Henry, duct tape a game camera in a cooler, leave in the bed of your truck, put a touch of peanut butter in there. Yeah. Especially when we found out they were getting in the ice chest there at the 400, and didn't realize at the time what they were taking seemed to be the cans of iced coffee, and even then I couldn't be sure. I couldn't believe that out of 3 guys, how do you know who was drinking what? Until a year later, we're coming back from the lake, and I see one of those iced coffee cans laying on the ground off the trail, and the pop lid, where when you peel the top of a aluminum can Coke and it pops the lid inward, this lid was popped outward. So something had squeezed the can and the lid popped outward, and the can was empty. And when I saw that, I was like, what are the odds that you would ever find an old can of aluminum can with the lid popped outward unless there was some internal pressure pushing it outward? Like when you freeze a can. If you freeze a can of something, it'll pop, as the ice expands, it'll pop it outward. So I thought that, to me, was proof enough that they were taking the iced coffees, and they didn't know how to manipulate the tab like we do. So when they would squeeze it, but I can only imagine if you squeezed it till it popped open, imagine the squirting. So I don't know. All I know is how the can looked when it was found. And it's interesting, given the fact that we were missing a lot of the iced coffees out of the ice chest. And we have a recording of an ice chest lid being closed when something was in our campsite when we were gone one night. So all of that put together has 0 sightings. We had 0 sightings on that, but we had all of this circumstantial evidence. So sometimes that's the only story we can put together. Two commercials popped up during this live stream. You're getting popular with YouTube. Well, as long as it's not a commercial for iced coffee, because then I'll know they're listening way too deep into our conversations. Cato Lake. Yeah. I hear nothing but good about Cato Lake. Would like to get there. Bikes and bullets. I believe there is a nexus to the missing people and these beings. Not all, of course. Oh, sure. I've read all the missing 411 stories, and every story that I read it with the idea that a Bigfoot did it until I find something in the story that says it's something else, like another person. I look at all of them as a possible Bigfoot happening. Ruined Temple made it. Thank you. Thank you. Gruesome Twosome. Cato Lake is just so damn touristy. Way too many campers. Yeah. Yeah. But you got to understand, Gruesome Twosome, my Chickasaw Park encounter, when there's no leaves on the tree, I can see the edge of town. I had an encounter with 2 of these creatures, and other people have had encounters in the same place, and you can see the town. It's right there. And even when you hear those owl calls before they stepped out of the wood line, you can hear vehicles in the background from the town. So I don't think being so close to a town or touristy is that big of a deterrent. And I'm only saying that because of where I had my major encounter, was so close to town. So I just don't know. I think they can be anywhere. It's just wherever they feel comfortable, that they, enough cover that they can get away if they need to. Michael Fetterman, they are playing with us. Yeah, for sure. We had only one juvenile play Can Catch Me, just playing with us in the fields. May 1987, Columbia County, Pennsylvania. Yep, tapping windows. Yeah, all of those things. Anyone want to go on an Elwha River expedition? Let me know. Well, make sure you send me a message with a Google map showing me where Elwha River is. Alex Lopez, thanks, buddy. How do you think your strategies would work in the Pacific Northwest? Alex, I've been in the Pacific Northwest, and I've got a video I put out called the Bluff Charge, Washington Bluff Charge. I was up by Mount St. Helens. I've driven out there to Oregon, Washington, Idaho, several times, and spent time out there doing some research, all the way over to the West Coast. And so the taping up of the windows on that logging road that night that culminated into a bluff charge involved tree knocks, whistles, and then a temper tantrum and a bluff charge. I mean, you might have to go listen to that, but it was that technique of taping up the windows and driving down logging roads and just parking and waiting for something to happen that culminated into that bluff charge. So some of the techniques work, but I haven't, been out there enough, with enough trial and error and trying other things but I'd like to. Maybe one of these days when I can fully retire, I can head out there and spend a lot longer time. Your drive out of park right into town. Yeah. Kraken, don't bother them. I don't know if I'm bothering them. I mean, if you got a million people going around the lake and fishing and doing all the things that people do, which one's bothering them? If I go out there and I'm doing the same thing that a regular person does, what do they consider bothering them? But I appreciate that. You know, I'm not in this to bother them. I hope they don't take it that way. Joe B's, Randy, here's an idea. Sit in your vehicle, but cover the windows with one-way reflective film so you can see. Well, Joe, I've thought about that. The only thing is that reflective material only works when there's daylight on the outside of the vehicle, not darkness. When it's dark, it's not effective. It's only when there's light reflecting off that mirror from the outside. So when it's not light out, it's not effective. Ruined Temple. Have you ever looked into research techniques and methods by any of the primates? The 3 best known primatologists, habituations, and research. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if any of us as working family men and, you know, and me, a grandfather and a business owner, has the time to invest that these ladies did. I mean, living amongst them. The only researcher who ever advocated that would be Robert Morgan. He wrote a little book about it. Incredibly time consuming. I don't know, unless we were doing this full time and, you know, and was doing like a year-long documentary about this project, I don't know if that's even going to be possible for most average people, even average researchers. But good point. Michael Fetterman, northern edge of Olympic Peninsula, about 15 minutes from the Olympic Project. I am thinking about trying to put a mirror out there. Yeah, well, then I'd like to hear how that goes. Yeah, Ruined Temple, Joe Bielert's book. I've got it. Yep. Okay, let's see what else we got. Joe B's, I'm out of ideas. Yeah, you and me both, brother. Ideas are hard to come by. Well, what can you do? We just keep beating our head against the wall. Gruesome twosome. Nothing better than being in an empty campground in January, February, and having the whole place to yourself. Oh my goodness, you have no idea. When you've got a parabolic laying outside of the vehicle and listening, and nobody is there, every little sound can be something. But when you've got people, every movement you can hear, every tussle and turn and cough and zippers and just and conversations, and yeah, when people are around, it's a killer for me. I love being completely alone, even when I have one other researcher. If they even move in a chair, I'm hearing that. So it's so much easier when you're alone and you can be still and listen to everything that's happening. I love it, but it amps up your fear level too when you're completely alone. If I'm down on one of these dead end roads and my vehicle won't start, I don't know what I'm going to do. They'll probably find me dead in there from a heart attack. All right, Randy, I just meant like reading a book by them for tips, ideas on the text. Not quite sure if I missed that. Yeah, you're reading the books of that's what you meant. I have not read specific books by Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey to understand their mindset and what they tried. That's a good idea. I may look into doing that now. Ruined Temple. I think not nearly enough people look into how hominids have been researched in the past. Most Bigfoot people don't know squatch about known primates. Yeah, that would be a nice shirt. We don't know squatch. But yeah, you are correct. Camping with Sasquatch. Empty campground with no wind. Oh yeah, no wind is for sure. How was the Bigfoot captured on that farm that was jumping the fence? That was two boys. Uh, are you talking? Are you talking about the video that I did about the Oklahoma farm? Or are you talking about the MK Davis fence jumper one? And that was to Texas Paisano, TX Paisano. Have you ever viewed the documentaries by Flash of Beauty and the interviews? To be honest, I have not. Bikes and Bullets. I have not seen any of theirs. Because I see I see the same people in there that I've watched hundreds of videos of all of these same people. So a lot of times I don't need to see another one of the same people. I mean, I'm trying hard to find details that aren't just going to be repeated by the same person on a different format. And I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just saying that I haven't. Yes, the lady on the farm. The lady on the farm. I'm still so yeah. Are you saying yes to the MK video of the fence jumper? I need to know which one you're saying yes to. TX Piasano. Michael Fetterman, I am a zoo pro with decades of experience in reptiles and African mammals like lions, leopards, and hippos. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you are one step above all of us in you being comfortable around king cobras for sure. TXP. So I interviewed a woman, an older lady. So talking about a fence jumper. Are you talking about the lady that had the farm, the Scarboroughs, the Scarboroughs farm? Camera to mirror trick on fence jumper. I must be dumb because when I read these, I'm having a hard time formulating a question. Camera to mirror trick. Oh, I see. Where you use the camera looking into a mirror, where they say that's been a technique that has been successful in the past, where rather than having a camera pointing in an area, it's looking into a mirror. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Hey, Gruesome Twosome, thank you so much. It means a lot, and I'm doing this because it's going to help me. I sometimes get tunnel vision, and I get my blinders on, and I'm like, this is the right way, and this is and so sometimes I need to break out of that, and the only way to break out of that is with dialogue. So yeah, I enjoy bouncing, spitballing. Tim Baker Kunbo in Flash of Beauty interview seems to indicate playing a always brought software. Interesting. Todd Gatewood. Hey, Todd. Hey, I don't know about great job. This is my first time. I barely figured out how to even turn it on when it was going. So I don't even know if I can do that again. It seems so complicated to me. I know when I do this enough, it will get easier and easier over time. But right now, I'm as amateur as anyone else. But I like talking about the subject, so that's why I'm glad you guys are here. And thank you, Todd. So far, your friendship has meant everything to me. I enjoy your company. I've bounced some serious ideas off Todd. We've talked about the next step of communication, and even the simple act of when something's going on outside of your tent, the act of moving over and unzipping your tent is enough to send a Bigfoot vacating. So now we've come up with it, and me talking with Todd has come up with a way to use clamps to just hold the tent door shut with clamps rather than a long zipper, so that and I've got carpet on the floor in my tent. So if I ever need to come out of my tent because something's going on, then I'm going to have the thermal camera filming an area of my campsite, and I will just undo these clamps and just pop out and make sure that I keep myself in the area that's being filmed with my thermal camera, and try to instigate some type of communication. The MK Davis breakdown, a mirror was used to capture. Yes, I remember that. Bikes and Bullets. Daryl, the forest guy. Todd Gatewood, you the man, brother. I agree, Daryl. The gruesome twosome, that was MK. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. Yeah, the mirror, just another technique that's worth keeping in your repertoire of techniques. Great idea. Ruined temple. Have any researchers tried using cams that aren't digital, electric, with no batteries? I suspect the Sasquatch might possess a type of ruined temple. I've mentioned this a few times. I think it's worth part of the conversation, and that is, I'm not, like I said earlier, I captured a picture of the juvenile, I believe, at the Chickasaw Park with the camera on the table. And it was a cutty back with the infrared and all that stuff. So that at that particular moment, the infrared and the electronics wasn't a deterrent. It was the location and the way it was hidden. Now let's go back. Ruined temple. Let's go back to the Sierra Sounds. They too had problems using cameras. And in the late 60s and early 70s, they did not have the game cameras that we've got today. Not even close. As a matter of fact, I don't think they had game cameras at all. He said they tried to use cameras with string triggers back then when they were having the Sierra Sounds incidents going on there for a couple of years. And he said every time, Ron Moorhead said every time their cameras would get destroyed, avoided, left hanging in the trees in pieces. And those cameras were not infrared batteries and all that stuff. They just had them set up with string triggers. So you have to consider that as part of what is going on here. Why were those cameras treated the same way as cameras today when they were nothing like the cameras today? So I'm not sure that it's the electronics or the infrared. It's something else. That's just me trying to be logical and using, putting other things together that makes sense to me. I could be totally wrong, though. It's on MK's channel. Nancy Snodgrass, have to get my hubby's dinner. Nancy, thank you so much for hanging out here with us. I appreciate you. Bruce Beaver, 8mm or 16mm film is expensive, though. I wouldn't know. I'm just glad that everything is on flashcards and easy to use for a dummy like me. Time lapse. Yes, I've always thought there's some really expensive time-lapse cameras that are made to last 6 months long, watching very expensive job sites, like a huge building is being built and they've got this really $5,000 camera that sits on top of a pole and takes high-resolution pictures every 5 seconds for like 6 months. That's what we need watching a cove like at the 400 where footprints keep happening ever so often. That's the kind of camera we need to set up on top of a tree in the tree line, that'll last 6 months long, taking those pictures every 5 seconds until whatever's leaving those footprints is caught. Anybody want to donate $5,000 for one of those cameras? I don't think so, but it would certainly be, if you ever get a group of guys together that are really serious and can do that would be the camera that I would figure out, with some solar panels to keep it powered. And that is definitely the camera that I would use to watch an area. Bikes and Bullets. Do you believe these beings change their schedule determined by the season? More nighttime, warm months? And that's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know. I mean, do they have any type of even a not a real hibernation like you would expect, like a bear has, but just a seasonal slowing down and just spending more time resting and holed up and not doing as much. Man, I don't know. Will we ever know? It's good to speculate on those things too, though. Bruce Beaver, I believe as far as nature awareness, they are playing three-dimensional chess. Oh, that goes without saying, man. Yeah, they are whooping our ass. But man, the game is fun. I mean, I still like trying. Bikes and bullets, daytime winter months. Sorry. Ruined temple. I've heard that setting cams up on human-made objects or structures may be more effective. Yeah. I've always thought that given how much activity happens in power lines from hunters that see things happening on the power lines and them using power lines, that if we could ever get into an agreement with the power companies on these 100-foot towers, would allow us to put game cameras pointing to the next tower, and so each tower has game cameras watching the power line right away to each tower. You could do that for 25 miles long, where you've got the whole thing covered with game cameras. So anything across, but I guarantee you that won't happen. And it's not because the power companies would be against trying to capture proof. It would be liability issues. If they give you access to mess with any of their towers and you even bonk your head and get a concussion, they're going to be liable. So it's probably an insurance and liability issues is the only detriment. So if you could get a relationship with the higher ups in these companies and convince them, maybe they could get their own power line guys out there that could just leave game cameras watching a 10-mile stretch. I think that would be fantastic. Joe B, unsure of the logistics of how this would work or be achieved, but I wonder if strapping a camera to a deer or other prey. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you'd ever retrieve it. I mean, unless you had one of those little GPS trackers, those little tiny trackers that you put, like in a laptop or something. So maybe if you had a GoPro that you could strap to a deer and then have one of those little, because at some point the deer will either die or the camera will get knocked off, and you got to have the way to be able to retrieve that camera. Unidentified Arkansas phenomena. I would like to have a pack of Boston Dynamics robot dogs. Oh my God. I've watched some of those videos. Those things are phenomenal. Yeah. I'd be very worried that the military is going to throw some guns on the backs of these dogs, and there's not anything we could do about it. Ruin a temple. I'm curious, has anyone ever considered looking into the satellite imagery? I think a lot of people go into those and try to look. When it comes to defense, like the Defense Department, things like that, how far down they can zoom. I don't think they only do what the person above them tells them they can do. So that would be a tough one to get into as far as the satellite technology where they use to spy on other nations and see what's going on is, so it would be nice, but man, a lot of hurdles you'd have to jump through, and they only do what they're told when it comes to the military. They will not step outside of that. Yeah. Or clear-cut towers. Yep. Bikes and bullets. After my experiences, I attempted to feed them and draw them in with 4 cameras, negative results, yet the food, apples and peanut butter disappeared. I have been intrigued. Hey, bikes and bullets. I've only had one instance that I've gotten a few game cam pictures that I believe was able to trick them. That's why I'm sold on the fact that I think you can trick them. But I did have something happen on the Bullet Maker property where I had a game camera, but the game camera was clearly visible. It was on the side of a tree watching where I had a jar of peanut butter hanging from a string. Now, we had one instance where we got what looked like a finger swipe out of the peanut butter one time, and that was before we started using it with the game camera. But I have a video where the camera would take a short video, and you could see the peanut butter, and then the next video you see the peanut butter swinging in the wind, and it was smashed flat. It was flat like a sail, where something happened between the two videos where all the peanut butter was squeezed out of it. It was just smashed flat. And I thought that was the most fantastic testament to them possibly being aware that the camera was working a certain way. And once it was triggered, they were able, and it was still on the string. So it was smashed. All the peanut butter was out of it, and it was still hanging on the string. I thought that was spectacular details of something odd going on. Ruined temple. Hell, I've even considered going into the woods wearing those sunglasses with the tiny video recorder on them. Yeah. Yeah. Or, or the ones that bikers wear that's got a little side mirror where you can look behind you. Randy, Daryl, the forest guy. Randy, if Sasquatch can imitate known owls and coyote howls, how do you tell the difference when you hear them? What are you looking for in those sounds? For that reason alone, Daryl, I put little time in on that, because you can easily be confused. I've had lone coyotes be by themselves, come up on a logging road. I've watched one coyote do a howl. So a lot of people are misinterpreting coyotes and coyote calls, and it happens a lot. I wouldn't be sold on the deal if I wouldn't have had what happened at the Chickasaw Park that involved all those owl calls before the two stepped out of the wood line, and never heard them before that, never heard them after that. I had three different naturalists listen to those recordings and tell me what they thought. So I've got that feedback. I did everything I could because I believed it was those Bigfoots that were doing those calls. And Charles Hallmark told me that the ones in the park do owl calls to locate each other, and the ones at Guy Sandy Creek would do whoops. So you have all of this corroborating evidence, or at least circumstantial evidence, but then within the confines of my encounter, it involved those loud owl calls in a pattern that was just not natural. So I'm almost 100%, because of my own experiences, believe that they were mimicking owl calls or using owl calls to stay under our radar when they're in the park. So now here you go, where my own experiences, I have to now take that wherever else I go. So are they capable of it? Absolutely. Are they doing it? Absolutely. But can I count on everyone that I hear maybe being them? I don't think so, because it's easy to be confused. Sorry, I know I went a long ways on that one. Owl calls sound like they weigh 400 pounds. Yeah, Mark, I've heard that a lot. It sounded like an 800-pound owl, but you also never know how close the owl is. An owl right over my head in a tree right there is going to sound like an 800-pound owl, especially if you think he's way out there. So that is a misconstrued belief system. Yeah. Hey, Bikes and Bullets. I put a video out called Big Ed. I have some friends in Oklahoma who have a whole year long of history with peanut butter jars and being used as a bait for a Bigfoot that they started calling Big Ed. You need to check that one out. It is fantastic. Gruesome twosome. I'm not trying to prove anything to the world. I actually could care less about the gathering. I just want to see one. Hey, man, I hear you. I hear you. I just want to see one again. I want to take that next step. I think they want to communicate. I think they're compelled to try to communicate in their way, whatever that way is. I think the reason we're not communicating is because of us, because we can't get past that fear to where we're waving guns around and shining bright spotlights and yelling and hopping in the vehicles and taking off. And so I feel like I've got my head wrapped around on the part where I truly believe that the reason they keep coming around and they keep dinking and dunking small rocks is because they want to communicate. So I'm ready to try that next step. I haven't yet, and I may be too scared when the time does come. But for myself, I think that's the next evolution of where I've got to take it myself, and I really am looking forward to that. I hope I have my guts in place and my backbone in place when the time comes, because it's easier said than done. Yeah, TX Piasano. Yeah, the camera on the outside of the vehicle. I mean, we could come up with something. I mean, that has the camera hidden on the vehicle somehow. It's just another thing we'd have to work on. Gruesome twosome aren't lone. You know, I've listened to so many coyote recordings. They have such a wide range of vocals. I just can't say what is and isn't them, and I can't write it in stone where I say, would a coyote do that? I can't say no for sure, or I can't say yes for sure. There's too many variables within the coyote communications amongst themselves, or when one's alone by itself, for me to spend a whole lot of time on it, because there's too much room for error, and I ain't got a whole lot of time left in my life to spend too much time on the things that I don't know. And I'm trying to work towards what I think I do know. I know, silly, but it's like we got to choose what part we're going to work towards, because the rest, whether it be tree manipulations, all that stuff, seems to be just going around in circles. And I'm too old to just keep going around in circles on some of that stuff. Yeah, Ruined Temple, good point. Yeah, run it through a spectrogram analysis, and even then, for me, I just can't be sure. Joe B's displaying recordings of distressed prey animals. You know, I went through a stretch of time where I had one of those electronic collars, and used the rabbit call, the wounded rabbit calls and stuff like that. I can't say that I've ever had any more success with any of those techniques than I have with just being a spectacle for them to come view. All of those other things, if I would notice a big increase in activity level because of doing those, I would certainly keep doing them, but I never did. And I spent so much time chasing those type of techniques. And I've learned over time that nothing seems to be more successful than just people quietly camping, or quietly walking down a logging road, or quietly, sitting in chairs talking amongst themselves in the dark. Sometimes those seems to be the more of an attractant than all of the other trickery I've tried. And believe me, I've tried it all. So, Randy, what are your thoughts on Chris Knowles' Sasquatch savant theory? I gotta say, I mean, and I don't want to offend anybody here. I know Chris. I knew Chris back in 2005. He and I used to talk on the phone all the time. I had a bad experience with Matt Moneymaker. Chris Knoll was his right-hand man, was doing a documentary about him at the time. Chris Knoll used to call me up all the time asking me about my Bigfoot research, and he would never give me anything, but he would always try to extract stuff from me. So I wasn't a fan of him even way back then. And then when he did his porcupine in the tree, I know some of you guys might think it's a Bigfoot. I think it's a porcupine. It has every indication that it's a porcupine, no matter what story he wraps around what happened. That's just my belief. I don't want to offend anybody who likes the guy. So when I have someone that I think is being deceptive, I'm not. I can't be that interested in what else they've got. That might be a bad character trait of me, but that's just the way it is. Yes, I have seen some of Robert Dotson's. Yeah, that old fart was he was a brave character. I've been to an area that he was at before he passed away. Rest in peace, buddy. But yeah, I've got access to his old area, so that's good. Well, I've seen videos, Ruined Temple, of porcupines, and they do have hands. They've got little hands. They pull branches, and yeah, they do everything that he showed in the video. You just have to find a video that shows you that. Los Angeles, Angel Valenzuela from Los Angeles. Wow, that is cool. I hope you're nowhere even close to the fires out there. I mean, how are you making it out there with all that's going on? I hope things are coming to an end so that things can get back to normal. Joe Bees, Todd Standing reached out to me last week, and we had a phone conversation, and he was looking to maybe come down south of the border and do some stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. He seems likable enough. I'm going to have to just kind of keep my ideas of, I always liked the video where it showed the Bigfoot up there that squatted down really quick, where you see his backside as it squats down. I always thought that was a very legit, and I'm just going to leave it at that because I just don't know. I don't know what motivates a person. I don't know, until I get to know who they are, and I don't know who he is exactly. So I can't say anything about that. I hope you guys understand. But I think he's a nice guy. He's a family guy. He's got children. So we'll just have to go from there. Kraken, the front mirror cam. I had a cam. I had a little Polaris Ace that we'd use at the 400, and we were coming down a trail one night going to our campsite, and I was flying. And Shane was standing on the back bumper because those Polaris Aces are made for one person. It's like a little dune buggy. And so he was standing on the back bumper. So he was much higher than I was. And as I'm flying down the trail with high grass and branch and stuff on side of us, I see movement on one side. I have no reason to believe that it wasn't just a small animal like a rabbit or armadillo or something. And as we flew by it, Shane hollered, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And by that point, I was already 30, 40 more yards down the road because I was cooking. And Shane was hollering at me, and I got the motor going, and I pulled into the campsite, and I hop off, and I was like, "What?" He said, "Did you see that?" He said, "There was a bunch of brown fur going through the brush." I said, "I saw the brush move." And so we ran down the trail back to where it was happening, and you could see where something went through there. And I had a recorder back on the creek. And when we listened to that recorder, you could hear something running down the dry creek bed at that same moment that recorder had picked up. So he says it was large and brown, trying to stay low, and was moving as we were flying by. He saw it looking down through the 3-foot tall grass. I just saw the grass move. So I did buy a camera at that point that was on the front windshield of that Ace. And then it had a recorder at the back, a recorder at the front from that moment on, in case that ever happened again. Okay, Henry, see you later. Thank you for stopping in here, buddy. "45 minutes away, Angel." Well, hang in there, buddy. Yeah, Kerry Arnold was a good one. His story, his encounter story while he was hunting turkey was one of the best stories I've ever heard, with lots of good details. Wonder how the Bigfoot liked that change. Keep Lake Greasem in mind while you're down there, Randy, maybe as a connection area. Lake Greasem. Now I'm going to have to write that down. Lake Greasem. Now I will be looking that one up. Diane Fossey was quoted as saying that her work with autistics was integral to her success with habituating her wild gorillas. I happen to be autistic too, so I can't help but wonder. Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, who knows the mental makeup and intelligence? We know they're intelligent. We know they communicate. We know all of these things. The mimicry, the nonverbal communications, and all of these things. I mean, so who knows? Fascinating, just fascinating. All right, Joe, man, thank you so much for stopping by. You know, I may do this on a regular basis before every trip, you know, so that way it's not anything that's regular, but I appreciate you stopping by, buddy. It means everything to me. Yeah, ruined temple. Yeah, if we can just get that part figured out, I think we would move forward so much quicker. I'm telling you, I'm going to get outside of my tent. Remember when I was down in Oklahoma a couple of months ago, and on the 5th night, I had all that stuff happening where stuff was being thrown and you could hear stuff breaking, and even those sounds. All of the other nights, maybe something happened, but that night I was sure that it was on the outside of the camp doing the throwings and stuff that we're all used to. That's the kind of night that I'm trying to prepare for again, where I can step out of the tent in just my underwear, because it's important that they see that I've got nothing can be hidden anywhere, and make sure that the field of view that my thermal camera is filming outside of my tent, that's where I go. I got to make sure that I stay within that field of the area being filmed with the thermal camera. I think that's got to be my next step, of getting on the ground, head down, sitting down, palms out, talking like you would talk to a skittish horse. You know, hey buddy, you know, I know you're out there, and just be calm and cool. It's just the act of having the guts to step out totally vulnerable and sit down and be vulnerable. That, to me, that may be the key of the difference of everything up to that point. I believe that. I mean, so I've got to do it so I'll know. So love talking Bigfoot live with people. Yeah, for sure. It's always cool. Ever play a recording of snoring in an empty tent? Yeah. I've played 30 minutes of a baby crying. I've played audio of snoring. My God, there is nothing I have not. I've done nights where I've played the Sierra sounds over and over again. I mean, there is nothing I haven't tried over the years. My God, it's so many things. And it doesn't mean that any one of them, just because I wasn't successful with any of it, doesn't mean that on a given night that it wouldn't be successful. It just comes to a point where there's so many things that you can try that you could spend all of your time putting so much effort into trying all these different things. And sometimes I have to pull it back and just work on the 2 or 3 things that I've had some success in, and just keep working it from that angle. But good point. Yeah. All right. Ever play recording snoring? Sounds like one hell of a plan. Do you feel that you can? Right now, I feel like I can, Mr. Ruined Temple, but at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in pitch dark, you know, I won't feel like it. I will, especially if I'm hearing a branch break and a branch getting thrown into my campsite, I will not feel like it. But if we don't talk about it and have the plan already set in place, and even go over the anxiety that I feel even thinking about doing it, if you don't get through this process, you'll never be able to do it. So I think about it, and I know that my anxiety level is going to be through the roof when it happens. But but I've got to show enough self-discipline of why I'm here and why I'm doing this to let myself do what I think is the next step for me. My God, I hope it works, and I think it has the chance. Can you imagine a juvenile that is so curious about us and wants to? Can you imagine being out there on the ground in that position and having a juvenile step from around a vehicle to initiate that contact and have it captured on a thermal camera? Oh my God, it will be the most fantastic thing. And I think about stuff like that. And so, yeah, I hope I do have the guts when the time comes. Yes, gruesome twosome. I like Lance's video. The video he did about the old timer in Oklahoma. Absolutely. I contacted Lance after that. There were 3 stories within that gentleman's timeline that involved locations. My Chickasaw Park encounter happened not too far from Arbuckle Lake, where that gentleman was working on the dam. So yeah, and he was doing the dynamite on the Verdigris River, and that was by Bullet Maker's place, where I did videos about Bullet Maker on Lake Oologah. So yeah, that was a fantastic. I like Lance's channel, Monster 911, and that, especially that Oklahoma story, it resonated with me, and I mean it hit all my sweet spots. Camping with Sasquatch, is there any kind of call blasting you feel that gets the best results? No, I don't. Everything seems to be so random. Do you suspect any behavior or character difference between the Oklahoma Sasquatch and the Oregon? Well, maybe. I don't know. I had a rock hit, a pretty substantial, loud rock hit when I was up by Mount Baker, which is in Washington, and then the bluff charge situation down by Mount St. Helens, and that involved other nights of activity around the campsite. And the one running around the campsite screaming, all of that seemed very aggressive to me. So yeah, giving the instant, and when one certainly being a bluff charge, a temper tantrum bluff charge. So that's 2 instances that clearly much more agitated than what I'm used to in Oklahoma. So given that is my experiences, I would have to say yes. There seemed to be a difference between the 2 different Bigfoot types. Ruined Temple. Yes, thank you. Hey, guys, it's 8:30. I'm thinking about going ahead and wrapping this up. I really didn't think that it would be this live chat would be as successful as it is. You guys have made this really awesome. I enjoy talking the subject, and I appreciate you guys. So in a couple of days, I'm going to be down there at Lake Ouachita. I might go live down there. We're going to have at the dock. On the houseboat, we've got the Starlink, so I will have access. I'm going to take both of my laptops, not only for listening to all my audio from all of my putting my audio recorders out, so I'll be able to get online. If something happens, I will certainly maybe get online and talk about it. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. Can't wait to put a video together about it. Lots of drone footage. It's just going to be fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let myself off here, and I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.